Alright everybody, we're working on the N54 again. So if you haven't watched the other videos, make sure you do to catch up on where we're at on this build. But today we're going to go to Harbor Freight. We're going to pick up an engine stand and an engine hoist. And then we're going to dial in the rest of the stuff to get this engine out so we can start tearing it down and see what happened. I still haven't sourced a new block yet, but in the meantime we will kind of figure out what happened with this. I want to be patient and get the right block for the right price, so I'm in no rush. There's a few for sale that have 150, 200,000 miles. I don't know that that's the route I want to go. So I'm going to try to do a little bit more vlog style. I don't know how that's going to work out, but so far we have the intake off. We have the starter out. We've taken off the whole front clip, so headlights, fender liners, wheels, bumper, crash bar, everything. And then we still have to take off the belt. We have to take off the transmission bolts. We have to take off the mounts. And we have to remove the engine harness from the car and a few other things. So we're just going to get started. I'm going to just try to, I'll try to time lapse, maybe put some B-roll in for you guys and kind of keep you updated. The starter was pretty hard to get out, so I imagine the rest of the transmission bolts are going to be pretty difficult to get out. So let's get started. So we got an engine stand and we got an engine hoist. So I'll put those together later, but that should help us get the engine out. And then when we get the engine out, we can put it on the stand and diagnose what happened to this engine. So let's get started on pulling out the rest of the stuff. So right now we're going to disconnect the fuel line. I'm going to leave the fuel system with the engine. I'd rather just take all that stuff off when it's out of the car. So I'm just going to disconnect the fuel line and the two connectors, and then we will remove these belts. All right, so we have the fuel system disconnected and we have the belt off. So next we're going to disconnect the power steering pump. We're going to take it off the engine. That way we don't have to drain the power steering fluid or deal with any of that. So we'll just take it off so that way we can pull the engine out separate from that. So there's two bolts down here. I don't know if you can see them. They're really greasy. And then there's another bolt behind where you can get to it from the wheel well. So let's take those out. So I've got the AC compressor off the engine with the harness disconnected and the power steering off the engine. So I can lift it up and I don't have to deal with the AC lines or the power steering lines. The next thing that we're going to do is just disconnect all these wiring harnesses on this side, and then we'll take off the oil cooler lines and the last radiator hoses on the bottom. All right, so we got the coolant reservoir out, we got the boost solenoids out. I'm going to take those with the engine. Next we're going to start disconnecting the wiring harness. I'm going to film the whole thing. I recommend if you're doing this, you do the same thing. But I'm going to do it so that way I could take the harness with the engine and I could remove it and replace it onto the new engine outside of the car. So pay close attention to how you disconnect this, and if I find any tips or certain things you got to pay attention to, I'll let you guys know. Alright, so we got the DME and the wiring harness completely separated from the body. So everything on this side is good. I removed the ground strap over there. So I think the only thing left on this side is just the motor mount. I got the oil cooler detached from the oil filter housing. And then I think everything is good on this side. And the only thing left is the mount here. So now that we have, the only thing left is the mounts and the transmission bolts, I'm going to start removing the transmission bolts. So there's only two. The two at the top are the trickiest. We got one out for the starter, and then there's another one right next to the starter. So I'm just going to start trying to use extensions and whatever to get to those top two. I've got the downpipes off, and I've been having trouble with the transmission bolts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the engine hoist, just kind of take a break and go back to them. I also think I need kind of like a jack handle to give myself more leverage on the wrenches I'm using. So I'm going to check the hoist box to see if that jack handle will work. So let's get this hoist together. All right, we got the hoist built. So next we just got to get the transmission bolts out and we can pull this thing out. So unfortunately, I'm going to probably have to go buy a piece of pipe or something so I can get some more leverage on the wrench. And I'm going to have to figure out better ways to get the transmission bolts out. So next you'll see us, we'll be pulling this. All right, everybody, I got all the bell housing bolts out. This last bolt, the one on the passenger side, up at the top. Took me 2 days to get out and an extra set of hands. So shout out to my buddy Austin Menke. If you're interested in plane building or just general DIY stuff, check out his channel. But he came over, we got a bunch of extensions together and hammered it onto this bolt and cracked it loose. But if you're doing this job, I definitely recommend getting a buddy to help you with that, because that is the most difficult part about getting this engine out for sure. So now we'll hook it up to the hoist and get it out. So finally time to get rid of this bad boy. Alright, as you guys can see, the engine is out. I disconnected the harness from the transmission, so there's nothing left. I tried to leave the power steering pump connected, but the cooler was getting in the way. I actually bent it, so I'll probably need a new one of those, but no big deal. We were able to leave the air conditioning system involved, so I don't have to deal with the refrigerant. One of the inlets was getting caught in between these hoses, so I ended up just, as I was jacking it up, I was able to access the clamps for the inlets and took that off. But here it is. So, and then the next video I'll go over the new block that I just bought. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button, drop a like on the video, and see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. I'm just really trying to show you no love. Say you tired and you need a new love. Use what you got for your lose love. See new things with your views up. Yeah, what you want, new things.